because usually it takes about 30 seconds for YouTube um, to start streaming. I stream to Facebook Live and YouTube each morning, or on each and all the streaming things, and usually takes it. So there must have been maybe an update for my streaming service that happens so much quicker. But um, uh, that's why it's caught me a little bit off guard. Now, but speaking of streaming, I did find out too that yesterday's live stream of Mass, for some reason, seems to have cut off right around the preparation of the gifts at the offertory time. So I apologize for that. When Mass was over, I didn't see any error messages, and I don't know if it had anything to do. I know that I did get a message that Verizon had an outage of 911 service in Lucas County at some point, but I don't know if that had any effect on it or what. But I apologize that it sounds like only about half of Mass was streamed yesterday. So um, that's the technology is great when it works. When it doesn't, it's kind of very frustrating and sometimes very confusing. Um, but as we start a new week, um, there's not a lot of liturgical feasts on the calendar for this week, so it gives me an opportunity to talk about a few other things. Now, on Wednesday, we do have the feast of the Apostles Jude, Saint Simon and Jude. So I'll talk about them on Wednesday. But a couple suggestions that came in was to talk about the canonization process, so the process of someone being declared a saint by the church. And then also, too, someone had asked about a little bit of history about Halloween. And so with All Saints Day coming up on Sunday, Halloween on Saturday, it's a good time to talk about those two subjects. So I think today I'm going to start with a little bit of history, kind of the Catholic background on Halloween. Maybe talk a little bit about some of the other aspects of it tomorrow, and then near the end of the week, maybe I'll be able then to talk about the canonization process. So, good topics to discuss during as we move towards the end of October, beginning of November. And November's a month that's set aside in the church to pray for all the faithful departed. So it's an opportunity to maybe focus on a little of those things, but also too to get some of the history behind it. So the information that I have for today comes from Father Angel Perez Lopez, who has a PhD and also has a license in sacred theology. And this is more about the history of Halloween or the Catholic aspects of Halloween. Maybe. As many of you might know, Halloween is a contraction for the expression All Hallows Eve or All Saints Eve. So, hallowed, we say that in the Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. So, holy be your name. And so, one of the titles for All Saints Day could also be kind of All Hallows Day or All Holy, everything that's Holy Day. Then you contract Eve into een, and you get Halloween. So so it has a very Catholic connotation to it as a holiday. But as in other holidays that we know of that have a religious source, many times there's secular influences that creep in or even in some ways overtake it. So many historians think that that has some connection to a Celtic culture celebration called Samhain, which was for the end of the summer, so with harvest season as we would be here in our area of the world. There would be a lot of harvest festivals and so they had this festival for the end of summer and the beginning of winter. But the Catholic origins of Halloween go back more than 1,300 years for this vigil for the Feast of All Saints. Pope Gregory III in the 8th century, so in the 900s, dedicated a chapel in St. Peter's Basilica to all the saints. Now, I have to double check. Father Lopez doesn't talk about this, but I believe that feast was celebrated in May at that time. And then it was a century later, so sometime in the 1000s, Pope Gregory the Fourth made it a holy day of obligation, and also moved it to November. And that was believed to be he's adopting the tradition of Germanic Catholics to making it on November 1st. So the vigil shifts to the last day of October, since the first day of November is now All Saints' Day. So it doesn't seem like any of these popes were knew about this Celtic feast of Samhain, but once the Celts converted to Catholicism, that happened before the Feast of All Saints was instituted. So there may or may not be a connection there. And just like with Christmas, the Christmas tree, has pagan origins, Germanic pagan origins. I'm sure there's probably some pagan harvest celebration aspects that have carried on then into Halloween. So that happens. But we might focus a little bit more on those tomorrow, kind of the evolution of Halloween and its secular parts. So, in the United States, the Puritans banned and opposed Halloween radically because it was Catholic. But those Catholic migrants who came from Germany and Ireland like to keep the traditions alive, and so they merged some of the elements of this feast with the holiday All Hallows Eve with All Souls Day that comes up on November 2nd. So kind of get these three right in a row: Halloween, All Saints Day, All Souls Day. And this kind of speaks to some of the aspects of trick-or-treating. There would have been a tradition that people made special cakes on Halloween, and then the children would go from house to house begging for these cakes. We sometimes call Halloween Beggars Night, in exchange foods, whatever that are associated with that. So with harvest season, there would have been these cakes that they would have made, and so then the children go around and beg for them, and in exchange for getting one of these cakes, then they'll say prayers for the deceased loved ones of the person giving them the cake. Historically, the Puritan and Protestant attitude against Halloween was mixed with anti-Catholic feelings in our country. We know that was happening. And once you get this commercialization of Halloween, that stopped kind of the persecution of it from that viewpoint. Once it's seen as a secular holiday and it's not a Catholic holiday anymore, then there's no reason to be against it. So, we want to make sure that we celebrate kind of these holy aspects of it, that we don't fall victim to superstition or any kind of ideas of magic and things like that. We'll talk about some of those, like I said, tomorrow, as we talk a little bit more about some of these other kind of secular aspects of Halloween. But it's good to be reminded that it means All Hallows Eve. It means the eve of All Saints' Day. And so as we wind down October and move into November, it does kind of force us to contemplate the last things. In the church, we always have the four last things: death, judgment, heaven, and hell. And so moving towards the Feast of All Saints, we ask for their intercession and prayers, and we strive to imitate them so that when our earthly journey is over, we can join them in the heavenly kingdom. So that's a little bit of the first aspect, or the first installment of some Halloween background, kind of the Catholic roots of it. And like I said, tomorrow I'll talk maybe a little bit more about some of the other popular culture things, how those kind of creeped into Halloween also. So I hope everyone has a really wonderful day and a wonderful week. We'll continue to look out and pray for one another, and I pray that God will bless you abundantly this day.